May I ask?
Of course, as an intruder, you can always ask.
Thank you. Yeah, I already noticed. Okay, I'm an intruder, but I will just make up ice cream for everyone. So we are about to implement some automation. What I understood from your experience, that whenever we are moving to automation of some processes, it's better to separate some blocks and not to go on with a one batch and implement full automation, but rather than divide it into small processes. Am I understood correctly, or what you suggested?
It's a very good point that you raise. I'm not sure that there is a simple answer. If you're looking at automating certain processes, how important are they to the business? If it's training, then obviously it's very important. But then do you have enough crew to do the training and the flying? And these are the things that you have to weigh up. And if you put automation on training, what impact then does that have on rostering? So there's no real simple answer. I think it needs an analysis undertaken and observe the processes and methodologies, and then one might come up with some suggestions to make your business plan more efficient and more effective.
Thank you.
And when I can add to this topic, because automation is for me also a big topic, and I think what was striking me in your presentation was that you were saying many years ago you have already identified requirements of automation, of digitization, and then we don't have the budget, and we could keep going to work like this. And I'm doubtful that we are not having the budget, because we can read almost every day that something is not happening as it was planned. We create rosters with 100% coverage. And then the reality is that not every flight is taking place. So we have waste. We plan standby crews, and there we also have a waste. So I'm still not understanding why we are saying on one hand we don't have a budget, and then we create this waste, which costs more because the investment in this one system is lower than the ongoing cost for 10, 20, 30 years of keeping going with this misery. So what is the explanation? Also a question to the audience. So why you are hearing from somebody who is 30 years in the industry that he faced the same problems that you probably have too? What could be the explanation? Pavan.
Thanks. Can you hear me firstly? Because this mic thing is... Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start at the beginning. Like Paul started at the beginning, right? From the paper and the pencil and the rubber, right? It was paper, pencil, rubber, and it's a fact of life, and it happens even today, right? Okay. So one of the major traps that we have is that we do not cater for the ground days for the crew, whether it's cabin crew or the deck crew, right? I'll just use the word crew. We do not cater sufficiently because we feel that 10% or 20% of the time is adequate, right? But we don't actually break down those number of hours and days, right? In some cases, even 2 hours of training will mean a day off, right? And to put that person in the class, you cannot expect the person to be gainfully trained coming back at 10 o'clock at night, getting into bed and going for a class at 7 in the morning and be gainfully trained. I'm not saying productive. That person is not productive. That person is being trained to be productive, right? But if you're going to mess with his lifestyle such that he's still sleepy when he goes to class, still meeting the regulatory requirements, right? Regulations say he must get 8 hours, you give him 8 hours or her 8 hours, right? Him and her is, for me, is just the same thing, right? So if you're not going to let that person be properly trained and cater to the need for that person to be trained, then you are losing, you are not gaining, right? Everybody, it's actually an unwise gain, because what you're losing in terms of subsequent productivity, if that person has, let's say, not, he has lost a Q in some specialized training, right? Let's say a cat 3, low visibility training, right? So if a person has lost a Q in a class which consisted of low visibility training, and he needed to use that Q at some approach, but he could not use that Q and could not execute the approach, 6 months down the line somewhere, you have lost because you didn't give him that 2 hours of rest, right? And that is in thousands of dollars, and this is maybe $100, right? So now where I'm coming from is I've worked all sides of the globe as far as aviation goes, right? From fighter jets to microlights to being an airline CEO, it's all there, right? It's not vanity, it is just a satisfaction which I'm now putting back into the system, right? Now we first have to start from the back, and the back is the training, right? Unless you get the trained resource properly, you cannot maximally use that trained resource, right? So first we take the regulator's requirement of what training is required, right? On that we have a statistical approach. There is no human being that is 100% efficient, and we pretend in airlines that we are using 100% efficient crew, right? Anything beyond 70 to 75% is not realistic, right? And that is one of the biggest traps we fall into. We put the numbers, so many aeroplanes, so many schedules, so many hours, tuck, one number. So many classes, so many guys, one number. Put both these numbers. So many days sick, put the numbers. So many days leave required, put the numbers. So many weekly offs, put the number. We have a number crunching, right? Now when we've crunched the number, right, we have crunched it so hard that we've left no buffers and no margins, right? Even when I put my fingers together, you can see cracks in them, right? It's life. You cannot number crunch and use 100% of those numbers, right? Okay. The other aspect is a lot of us come from different backgrounds. It's natural. We're all human beings with different working environments, and we come together in a set of circumstances in an airline, right? In that set of circumstances, we tend to draw on a past experience, right? Because what is going to happen, we don't know, right? So we try and mold from our past experience, and we say the percentile requirement of buffer is 15%, right? But the circumstances we have not carefully sat down and done, right? So we may be either overestimating at 15% or we may be underestimating, because the scheduling that takes place in different environments is different. If you go international, you cross time zones, your rest periods are different. You're narrow body and you're still international, your time zones are, your scheduling requirement is different. You're narrow body and you're within one time zone, your requirements are different. A narrow body guy, I have done that, can fly 4 flights a day, right? And take it to the limit of 12 hours and still go next morning to work. You can take a narrow body guy, make him do a 6.5 hour flight, which is typically the max you can do on a narrow body, right? And the next day he's pooped, but he's still within limits. So you put him back in the flight deck and he's back again, right? He'll make a mistake. All those things are going to add to your final, what shall we say, the deficiencies of availability of crew. Because when that guy makes a mistake, he goes offline, right? You never catered for that when you did your number crunching.
But coming to this point, because it's very interesting. On one hand, you say we are all different. We all have our personality. But on the other hand, we have unions who flatten across the entire crew members. All are even. The only differentiator are the ranks and the seniority, but cabin crew is cabin crew, pilots are pilots. And now you're saying, yeah, but maybe the one pilot is different than the other. So how we tackle this then?
Correct. So I worked union-wise, right? I was on the salary committee of a fairly large airline. I will not name the airline, but I was on the salary committee of a fairly large airline where exactly this point came. And when I proposed something like a 44% or a 46% increase from the previous scales, they said, you're mad. I said, I'm not mad. I said, you have to understand from what is the baseline, and you have to understand where you are. And this is the gap we have to fill, right? We first want to understand here where we've reached. We forget the baseline, right? It's the gap between the baseline and the final product. That pipeline is what we have to fill. We don't have to fill this. We have to fill this pipeline, and we have to construct this pipeline. That is our job as a manager. And just now you said, I have 6 crew and 7 things to do, right? That is where the manager comes in, right? Because, and I was discussing this with a pilot, I think my daughter's a 777 captain. I think I was discussing it with her or one of her friends, right? And as a pilot, you are trained to demand the infrastructure that will cater to your requirement 100%, right? If I don't have so much fuel, I will not go. You give me this fuel, right? That is my demand, and it is my authority not to go, right? Now, if I put this into a rostering system, there are two separate schools of thought. This guy has got 80% resource, he's got to meet 100% schedule. And this guy says, without 100% resource, I will not meet the schedule. But the airline's got to fly, right? So now, where is the gap? The gap is between the interface, right? Which interface? The gap is between the interface between the crew and the non-crew, in whatever field you take it from, whether it is administration, logistics, infrastructure, IT, ops center, ops control, medical, the regulator, right? Because the pilot, right, is taught from scratch that his job is to get into that flight cockpit and fly that aeroplane safely, place A to place B, and go home, right? There are very few airlines, and they will be some of the most successful airlines who will have created an environment where the interface between various branches of operation, let's use a military term, branches of operation takes place such that people are comfortable with each other. The moment you have that, a lot of your rough edges on the tarmac start going away. So these are the inputs that I want to give over here, right? And I think I will stop because there are a lot of other inputs going to come, so I'll stop here now.
Exactly, because we said earlier we have more women than men, and we have to stop now. Maybe please the ladies' voices. What are your thoughts on this? Are you facing a similar situations? Would you tackle the challenge in the same manner, or what are your perspective on what also Pavan has explained? Jurate, Laura, Leonie, Dimitra, Claire.
Hi, everyone. Maybe just a few words from my side. Thank you very much for this, for the panel, for the discussion. But basically, I see that the times are changing, but the issues are still the same. We still have crew members complaining for the same events, what they were complaining now. And it's quite difficult to, to comprise something which everyone would be happy of, right? So here's probably one interesting fact is how to put everything into the numbers that you want to show for the management, right? To be on the good side from that side, but also how to please the crew members. And this is the versatile part where we need to be flexible and to understand how to do things. So here's probably one of these discussions where we can actually discuss and to see how one or another problem can be solved from different companies.
But that's an interesting point, Jurate. So how many years you are now in this crew management environment?
8 years.
Okay, and if you consider 8 years back, first day, you saw what you have in place. What was your reaction on that? What was this? And I remember 8 years ago, we had smartphone already. And so was it for you like a shock, or were you somehow explained that's always how we plan crews and get used to it? Can you still remember how it was in the beginning?
Well, I'm trying to right now to get my first impressions over how everything was done in the past in my previous company, and you know how it looked. But yeah, we have a lot of sayings like, you know, it's always how we used to do, at least in my previous experience. So here I'm just trying to be open to see the possibility to improve, or rather than saying that, okay, that's how we always used to do, because maybe it's not always working how we used to do. Maybe we need to change in order to adapt to changing environment, which I believe is right now in our times, it's quite heavy changes that we're facing on daily basis.
And the question then to the audience, what needs to be changed first in this chain reaction environment? What is the holy grail we need to chase? Any idea here? Or is this a chicken egg problem?
I mean, I think more agility in the systems we have, because I think we have used to having very robust legacy systems so far, and I think that's what's lacking. We are not that agile as we would like to be. So yeah, and that's difficult to change because we are still working with legacy systems, of course, but we are living in a completely different environment.
But imagine now there is somebody coming, I have an agile system in here and so on. Would you doubt that it's really agile? Or would you say, oh, fine, okay, please implement and we pay for it? Or is there already so much doubt, because we are all used to work like this since many years, that it's also very tough for any agile vendor that they can convince the people in the industry that we have exactly this chicken egg problem?
Yeah, definitely. I think if we are looking at startups, I think for them it's quite hard in aviation industry, because everybody have used to the big names, and everybody usually are going to them as well if they can afford, of course, the solution. So yeah, definitely we need to change our kind of perceptions as well, and perhaps we need to take more risks. And then I'm thinking more about like organizational structure of airlines as well. For example, in our case, basically we have been growing during the last years, but let's say 3-5 years back, we were quite a small company, and there are not that many departments who are orientated directly on automation and innovation, let's say. Most of the departments are solely based on processes and just trying to get work done. And I think that's what's missing, at least in the company I work for. And we are working towards getting more people engaged in projects, working with innovation and so on. But I think sometimes we just lack time to think. We are just doing.
And I'm seeing Maxim here, who's a big fan of, and he put this as one of the topics, ROI calculation. So question then again to Laura, but also Inez, Leonie, Urate, Dimitra, and also Claire from your past. When you are working, are you then somehow have a list, okay, with non-legacy system, more agile, this problem could have been avoided, that at the end of the month you have a long list, and then at the end of the year, you have a big wall with all items, say, if a vendor would come and we would not have all these problems, or you are just trying to forget and say, if we think about this is not improving our situation.
I think this is the reason why we are here.
We
are still keen for some improvements, and just maybe, hear some tips and tricks how the other solving the items we are having. And what I'm hearing that all those issues, it's nevertheless when you where are you located or coming from, the same issues for everyone.
But I think I'm strongly living according 1% rule. And I think you are absolutely a 1%er of this industry, because if we are looking how many are in this group and how many are now attending the sessions, I think you are already a big step ahead compared to other people in the industry, because you are already looking left and right what is there. And I think that's exactly the main goal of this group, to bring people together. So next time you have a question, you have already plenty of other colleagues you can ask for support. Unfortunately, you will probably hear always the same issues, but our aim is to overcome all these obstacles. Interestingly, the next presentation in November will be different airlines, same issues, with Richard, who worked for several US airlines. But on the other hand, and that's also something I can really invite all of you, and you would be probably a big addition to the project Genesis, which we are currently running, where Paul is also a big driver, where we are creating now a manual for airline crewing. And so if you want to be part of this project group, just let us know. We will have our next project Genesis call 18th October, next week. And we have already started to create the first draft of this document. And the idea is to really establish a standard within the industry. So later on, if we have this manual, you can somehow go to your CEO and say, by the way, this is the standard in the industry in Europe or in Asia or in the US or in South America. We operate here. By the way, is like this, and we operate like this. And this is somehow also an invitation to all of you to be part of our project Genesis group. Claire, you are also the founder of this group. Any thoughts from you on Paul's presentation and the comments?
It's interesting how much it resonates. I mean, I started in the industry maybe 20 or 25 years after Paul did, and I think I still can relate to the experience of legacy systems going down and having to, manually do processes and then key them in later. And in the US, we have a term it's called redheaded stepchild, when you're kind of the forgotten person in the background. I also have red hair. I'm not a stepchild, but I take that expression kind of personally. But I think we all feel like all aspects of crewing can be overlooked. And we've probably all felt that way at some point in our career. We're not as sexy as the commercial side, and we're not pilots and we're not dispatchers. And so we can lose a lot of talent in our organizations to those areas. And I think a lot of it comes to education. I think right now is a key time in the industry where crew is a bottleneck for airlines to be able to grow, because, with so many people leaving the profession and many crew getting used to not working as much, at least in the US, that's been a huge barrier to getting back to pre-COVID flying levels. And it's caused, mass chaos in airports across the world this summer, and it's been in the news. So I think right now is key to sort of educate our executives at various airlines and the importance of crewing and investing in tools that allow us to be flexible, tools and work rules, and investing in the people at the airlines. So I think right now is a good time to try and elevate the profession, and I'm passionate about that. It's just a matter of how we do that, and I think a lot of it is through education and communication, which everybody's so busy we don't have time for. So that's why I'm excited about Project Genesis. I think if we create some material that can be shared more widely and get more recognition in perhaps even university programs, then elevating the profession and having more resources going towards developing better technology will be, how we can do things better. So I don't think it's just one way to solve things. I think there are many things that are needed, and a mindset change.
Thank you, Claire. Paul, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say one thing I love about Claire. She always seems to be able to hit the nail on the head every single time. And she's 100% correct in everything that she said, and I just wanted to say thanks, Claire. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, we are at the end of the session, and just want to give you some information. So we are meanwhile 106 airlines, and it's great that Claire and I, by discussing something about the virtual espresso, could somehow gather so many interested colleagues from the industry in just 2 months in this Enigma. By the way, thanks also to Paul, who is the grandfather of Enigma. So you have the grandfather rights on this really great notion. So you have already the opportunity to prepare for the next general networking session on either 25th or 26th October. So its calendar is really perfect because it always shows you the times in local time. So I'm here working in Central European time. If you click into it, you see the availability in your local time. And we have then 2 more focused topic presentations in November and December. We have then Richard Almazi on 10th of November, and we have then Marcel from Qatar Airways on optimizing training assignment. And so if you know smart, enthusiastic, upbeat and positive industry colleagues who should be part of the Enigma, please get in touch with us, because I think Project Genesis might be also for them an opportunity to positively influence the industry, because we are now working on this guide for aircrew planning. And yeah, it would be nice to hear from you back also how you liked the session. Is there something we need to improve? Because we are just in the beginning. We are a baby in this industry in terms of the community, and we want to go the baby steps and want to grow and in the right direction. And you are the echo chamber. And if you tell us what we need to do differently or what we shall continue, it helps us to really schedule accordingly. Paul wants to give a feedback already. Very good. Or is it still the raised hand from earlier?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, sorry.
No problem, no problem, no problem.
I'm not
Good.
sure how to get rid of it.
Any last question before we close the session?
Yeah, I have one thing to add actually to what Claire just said, right? And Claire said that the interaction, the interfacing, which is exactly what I was talking about, the various branch interfaces or the stream interfaces or the job JD interfaces, right? That needs to go up markedly, right? And that is a message we need to get out into the airline, right? Okay, I will take 2 minutes, right? When I was in the Air Force, we used to go and do ATC duty for the guys who were flying, right? It wasn't my job, but we were doing ATC duty, so I was having tea and samosa with the air traffic controller. Similarly, as an adjutant, I was handling the rations of the men who were putting those aeroplanes on the line to fly, right? Why I'm saying this is that with this background, it came to me as a strength when I moved into a CEO's position in an airline, right? Well, you can say, what did preparing lemonade for your flight crew as a flight lieutenant in a desert airfield in the western edge of India have to do? It helps you put together various elements and making 7 out of 6, which is what Paul was talking about right in the beginning of his lecture, right? And which is what Claire was also mentioning, that we are not well connected to each other, right? It's a holy grail, you know, holy cow, rostering. Don't go there. No entry. A lot of rosterings will have no entry, right? There itself, we created the barrier. We need to take these barriers down. We keep talking about CRM, maybe reducing barriers, but crew rostering, no entry, right? Okay, some part of it you put no entry, but some part of it you put entry so that people can see what happens, so they understand, and they help in giving you inputs which will help with your decision making.
By the way, Pavan, you know that I was asking you earlier whether you would consider to give also a focus topic presentation. I would like to repeat my desire. So maybe in the next year, you give us more insights about your wealth of experience too.
I will do that. I've already put it on the feedback form that you had, right? I will give you a talk, or not a talk. We will interact. Talk is one way, right? We will interact on what is the role of a technical pilot in a commercial airline, right? Which is even today extremely well misunderstood.
Plus, this very important topic, pilots in the industry, their role, and then always my very blunt question, are pilots good managers? So provocative,
Correct.
I know. Yeah.
Correct.
And because interestingly, I was now hearing several times the same answer on that. And that would be also quite interesting to elaborate on that.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. As a technical pilot, right, I am not an examiner. I'm not somebody like Claire says, such a sexy guy. He's an examiner. Go after him, boss. He's the guy who's going to clear you for your flying. He's the guy who's going to give you your fourth stripe. Nothing like that. A technical pilot is actually the interface between a lot of the systems and the pilots, right? So I'll talk about that separately. I'm preparing for it. It'll take time.
Very good. Very good.
Together. So, but along the line, along the way, right? But it's a very important point, and I'm saying this again and again because Paul has said the same thing. How do you make 7 out of 6? And Claire has said the same thing as to we are not very well interfaced with each other.
I think that was a very nice closing word, and nothing to add from my side. Thank you very much for everybody who could allocate some time for the Enigma, and we will publish this as soon as possible. You can then also share this with your colleagues who were not able to make it, and all of you who want to be part of Project Genesis, just drop us a line and you can attend the session next week too. Please stay healthy and safe until we see each other next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.